What's up, Gould Miners? Today we welcome Nathan St. Cyr to the program. Nathan is an up-and-coming force in the hospitality sector, focusing on high-end hostels. That's right, not hotels, not motels, but American hostels. His flagship project in Hawaii was recently named the #1 hostel in all of North America. And in today's episode, we dive into the how, what, and why of hostel investing. We start off by detailing some of Nathan's journey, how he got started in apartment investing and quickly made the transition into hostel investing. Nathan was hooked from the beginning. It was like love at first sight, and it's really fascinating to hear how he tells the story. Later on in the episode, we go into what he looks for when acquiring a hostel property, both from a market and property level, as well as some of the things that he does to drive traffic to the hotels from a marketing and reservation system perspective. And then finally, we go deep into the nuts and bolts of the business and investment side of the hostel business, from operating expenditures to projected returns, cap rates, expected margins on the hostels. No stone is left unturned. We really dive deep into the numbers. And let me tell you, I was super impressed with the knowledge that Nathan brought to the program. So whether you are a seasoned hospitality investor or you are brand new to investing in the commercial real estate space and you are thinking that maybe hospitality is a sector that you'd like to explore, I think that you owe it to yourself to listen to this, to kind of expose yourself to a different idea, a different asset class within the hospitality sector. It's really an interesting episode. So without further ado, let's welcome to the show, Nathan St. Cyr.
The Gould Mine Podcast.
Nathan, welcome to the Gould Mine.
Yeah, pumped to be here, Danny.
Pumped, baby. Pumped. Well, I'm excited to talk to a fellow hospitality nerd like myself. You know, I feel like there's not too many hostel, hostel, whatever you want to call it, investors, right? Hospitality investors. So of all the things that you could be doing right now, Nathan, what kind of led you down this path, right? Like into the hospitality sector, and walk me through that initial journey.
Yeah, I think that's number one, it's a great question. And I too have, followed your journey and went back and listened to your passion for hotels and kind of your dream. And this is an area that you're going in. And I couldn't be more aligned with a lot of the things that you've said about the overall hospitality asset class right now. And so I'm really, really, really bullish on where it's headed. And we're really excited with where it's going. But frankly, it was somewhat accidental how we ended up getting into. Our intention was never to go and become this unbelievable hostel brand. It just wasn't. And what happened was we were on a journey to go and do something big. My business partner Mike and I, and we just recognized that through single family investing, whether it was through long-term rentals, whether it was through short-term rentals, with all of the regulations that were getting cracked down here on Maui and just the impact it was having on the community, we just decided, you know what, we don't have the ability to really scale at the pace that we want. So we decided to make the journey into commercial real estate. And we took an educational course on apartment buildings, right? There's all these different ways to make money, but hey, let's go and buy apartment buildings. But we learned, the fundamentals of what the impact that commercial real estate can have through using leverage and forced appreciation. And that was a big deal to us. Well, we wanted to start here in Hawaii where we both live, and we wanted to start in our backyard. And the first property that we called on after we graduated from our education program, we called on our first apartment building, and they're like, "You're too late. It's under contract." It went under contract today. But it was crazy because in the little comments that we read were like, "Hey, we have a question. It says that this thing had previously been run as a hostel. What's that about?" And the real estate agent picked up on it. One of the challenges that we found when we were looking at apartment buildings, we were comparing margins that Mike was experiencing in his short-term rentals here in Maui. And every time we compared, it was always like, apartment building margins compared to his short-term rentals.
Horrible margins.
I was like, this sucks. And so when we saw that previously being run as hostel, And when we were looking at, because hotels weren't even on our radar. I don't think on Maui there's been a hotel traded for under $25 million. So that wasn't even within we've bootstrapped everything, right? So from an approachability and affordability standpoint, hotels weren't even on our radar. So this concept of that the real estate agent picked up that we had interest in, he just started sending us like everything that was happening around the world. This guy had stayed in hostels and had familiarity with the global scene. And we're like, dang, wait a minute. Is there a way where we can take those big fat margins that Mike was making in the short-term rental game, and can we actually apply it to hospitality assets that are zoned correctly, but not have to pay the massive purchase price that hotels go for? And so as we started digging in, we recognized, man, we are, no pun intended here, but we found a gold mine. Yeah, baby.
These are the kinds of stories that make me believe in destiny, right? And that sort of thing. Because isn't it funny, like almost serendipitous how, right out of there, it was almost introduced to you or like presented to you like right away, right? Like you kind of came across this opportunity, and so that's really cool. Danny,
we never looked at an apartment building again. Like we caught this vision, and the real estate agent was so smart because he recognized that there was this curiosity, and he just went all in, right? And it got us going.
I love that.
And look, we ended up purchasing a commercial building that we were going to convert, and the first one we learned a massive amount about. It didn't end up becoming a hostel. We still own it today. It's one of our the properties in our portfolio, and we use it as a mixed use property. But that allowed us to understand what our vision was. We created a vision, and we started really looking at the overall marketplace. And we recognized that this wasn't about purchasing a property. This was about building a brand. The U.S. market in hostels was so behind where the world was that there could be opportunity not just to go and create an awesome opportunity here on Maui, but to really build something special.
So let's take a step back, right? And let's define the word hostel for people who are because I think that like there could be like 5 or 6 different interpretations of that. So define what a hostel is and what the key differences are between a hostel and a motel hotel.
Yeah. Okay. Well, simply put, the hostel model is primarily by the bed versus by the room, and that there is a community and shared experience within it. So from just a concept standpoint, you go to a hotel and your goal is to stay in your own room by yourself and not talk to people. And look, I love hotels, and that's my mindset many times. So not that that is bad, but the differentiator there is that a hostel is really about coming together and having an experience together. And there's shared room opportunities through dorm beds, and then there's also private rooms. But people want to have that community experience. They want to meet like-minded people where they go to a destination, and they care about adventure, and they care about experience, and they care about doing it with other people.
I see. Yep.
And let's be real. I think that if we look at a lot of people, especially in America, look, we are way far behind. So when we say, we're creating this killer hostel brand, well, usually it's like stigma, right? Hostel, cheap ass freaking bed bug, freaking there's no way I'm touching some crap hole like that, right? So it's the cheapest place that somebody could possibly go to. And frankly, that is, that's why in the US, there's the most hotels in the world in the United States of America, but yet hostels don't even crack the top 15. So there's this disproportionate hospitality mindset between globally and then Americans. So now I will say, if you go to our website and you look at, househostels.com, you're going to be like, damn, if you have that stigma and you go look at our hostel, you're going to be like, damn, that's a swaggy boutique hotel with And then you go and look at our Instagram page and you see what the people are doing together as they're out on the guided activities that we provide, where they're chasing waterfalls or they're doing their snorkel trips or their whale watches or whatever it is they're doing, that we provide these experiences where we bring people together, you'd be like, whoa, that's I guarantee you want to be a part of, holy crap, that makes me want to travel and vacation.
Love that. Yeah. And I was actually going to ask, right? So what makes, from your point of view, right? Yeah. What would make a hostel a more attractive option for guests, right? So what are some of the pros? I'm hearing community as a part of it, right? So maybe if I'm traveling solo or if I'm traveling with a group of friends, and that like potentially be like cool, to interface with other people. Well, walk me through some of the other advantages or perks or pros, if you will.
I think first of all, it's critical to establish the avatar. Like, who is staying in the hostel, or who is it that we want staying in our hostel? And we really look at it's really the 20 to 30 year olds, 30 on the higher end, 18 on the lowest end. But it really is that Gen Z and then up and coming generations that we're really targeting. And it's important to understand that avatar, especially in the US, they care about different things and they've grown up in a different world. I'm of an older generation. And because I'm from an older generation, I'll give you an example. When Uber got launched, I was like, there's no way I'm driving in somebody else's freaking car. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
There's no way. Because that was my stigma, right? Like, oh, dude, I'm going to go and get in this dude's car that he drives to freaking work. Like, no way. But now anywhere, it took me, I had to like go, oh, this is becoming a social norm. And oh, maybe this isn't so bad. Whoa, wow, it's an app and it's this convenient. And anywhere you go, you just push the button and they're there. And so it took me longer because of my Western mindset of separation, privacy, all of that. But Generation Z, they really care about and have grown up in a world of shared things, whether it's Uber or whether it's co-living. I mean, I look at Gen Z, did some studies, 40% of them have had some level of co-living that they've experienced in their lifetime. So they look at things differently. And I think a big reason for that is because of the way that life is today with technology. Everything is technology driven. So the human experience, they crave coming together as a community and having the human experience together versus being isolated.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. And you've got to know your avatar, right? And so it sounds like you've done that. And gosh, just hearing you say under 30, it makes me feel so old. I'm like, wow.
Well, how about when our team wanted to create the age like requirement? Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I can't stay in our hostel.
Yeah.
Like they don't want the creepy old, they want to keep the creepy old guys out. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're calling me the creepy old guy. Like,
yeah. That's so funny, man.
I hear you. Yeah. And so when you ask the question though, like why would they want to do that versus just staying in a hotel? Because we aren't the cheapest. You could go and look at a group of 4 that are going to come travel with us, and they may pay for more for the 4 of them per night than they would if they went and got something on Airbnb for the 4 of them. But what they want, I mean, you go look at our Instagram page, you want to be a part of what we create as far as an environment goes. We have daily on-site gatherings in the evenings where it's margarita night, and it's that balance of
that's cool.
Parties in the evening and get-togethers. And remember, you went out on activities during the day that we provided for free most of the time, where you've gone out and you've started to get to know people. Like, you do things together, which creates that camaraderie. So then it trickles into the nightlife, and then it trickles into, hey, where are you guys traveling next? Let's go travel together. And they go on and they make friends, and they were strangers when they met, and they leave as friends. It's pretty radical.
That is pretty cool, man. That is really cool, actually. So now let's talk about and now I'm going to put my investor brain on, right?
The financial viability.
Yeah, let's talk about that, right? So from an investment standpoint, what makes hostels attractive versus, say, like a hotel? what would the margins on a business like this look like? And are there certain markets in which this works and certain markets which this doesn't work, et cetera?
Yep. Okay. Well, let's just start with a big fat statement.
Yeah.
We purchased our Maui, with what we call our prototype. We purchased it for $800,000. And this year, 4 years ago, and this year we are budgeted for $800,000 of NOI.
Not a bad return.
Right. So look, we could go and purchase a $10 million hotel asset, and, maybe we're looking at the same NOI. Maybe we're looking, you know what I mean? Maybe we're looking at $1 million NOI, but similar amounts of NOI for a tenth of the price. So from the concept, and there's some reason for that. Number one, when you look at these assets that we're able to purchase that have hospitality loaning, we're good with shared bathrooms and we're good with shared kitchen spaces. Yep. Anybody that's looking at that for a boutique hotel or multifamily, and they go look at an asset that has this structure, they're going to go and look at it and they're going to be like, well, for me to convert this into a boutique hotel, I'm going to need to put bathrooms in the infrastructure cost to convert a building is massive. Whereas,
huge. Yep.
Whereas we go in and we're like, oh, that's exactly what we want. So from a competitive standpoint and from what we can actually do with an existing asset, and then secondly, from just the market competition, most people in the US that own hostels, they're unbelievable people. They went and had great experiences in their life and they fell in love with the hostel community, and they came back home and they're like, this is what I want to do. And so they go and they build a hostel business, right? And they're a part of the business. They are the business, right? And so they're not doing it because they're like, oh, I want to go and take full advantage of an asset that is untapped and go and create a $400 million valuation of a brand. That's not their thought process. So from a competition standpoint, some of these more valuable, areas, urban areas where you do have to invest more into an asset, that's just not there's very little competition for that compared to the hotel space. So we're kind of an early adopter in that sense.
Now, I did read somewhere that you were also exploring the boutique hotel space as well, like maybe doing some boutiques and some hostels. So what would draw you, or what would convince you to execute one business plan over the other?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we talk about this all the time. We have a podcast called the Hotel Investor Playbook. So fundamentally in hospitality, right? Fundamentally in hospitality, there's similarities. There's a lot of similarities. The thing that's the most exciting to me about hospitality is that you've got the two levers, right? You've got this real estate, but it's really backed by a business, right? I've heard you talk about that. It's backed by, and the thing that makes that so special is that within business, you have so many levers that you can go and pull to generate a product or a service. And if you can execute that well and deliver that experience is what we're looking for in hospitality, those levers, they jack your ability, they amplify your ability to increase the value of the asset. So when we look at, well, what would make us go and look at a boutique hotel versus a hostel? Or, man, what would go and why would we want to go and look at converting this little campground into a glamping site or an experiential lodging? Well, each time we look at it, we start with, well, what does the asset tell us it wants to be? Because at the end of the day, there's an experience that could be generated. And if we come up with a thesis that says, okay, here's the underlying asset, here's our thesis of what we believe will make it its highest and best use, that ends up delivering that answer to the question that you asked. Well, what would make you do a boutique hotel? Because the fundamentals are the same. We understand that to get to ultimately delivering a hospitality experience, the fundamentals, the systems, the processes, they're the same. They're just, they're nuanced in how you go and deliver that. So we really look at what does the asset tell us it should be, and what's the most financially viable way that we could get the most out of that asset.
Now, how do you go about selecting markets? Are you just focused in Hawaii right now? What markets are you playing in, and why?
Yeah. So if we let's look at our hostel model to start. If we we've learned through our hostel model that not all markets are going to work. We want to have a staff full model where we need to generate a minimum of $1.2 to $1.5 million of gross revenue is like our minimum starting point. Well, to do that in a hostel model where you're renting it by the bed, that's a lot of people that you need to generate that amount of revenue. And so we've identified for our staffing and for our experiences and for our adventures, 24/7 reception, just the whole deal, that we need to have that revenue. And to have that revenue, there has to be enough travelers. So we target areas that we feel very confident has enough travelers, number one, in volume, and number two, that there's enough international travelers where, international travelers they don't have the same stigma that the US does about what a hostel is. So they're actually looking for hostels as they travel. And so those are two components that are really, really important to us.
So speaking of like leisure travel, right? One of the, I would say for me personally, like investment thesis in the hotel sector, it's really difficult to wrap my brain around investing in a hotel where the primary and strongest demand drivers like leisure travel, simply because, the ebbs and the flows tend to be a lot more dramatic, right? When times are good, people travel, they're spending, they're loose with their money. And then when times are tough, it seems to dry up. I think I already know what your answer is going to be, but I'm curious how, you have recession proofed or kind of built in lapses in leisure travel to your business model.
So this is a huge benefit that we have in the hostel industry. And cloud beds, as I'm sure you know, and the listeners know, if they don't, cloud beds is I'd call it the most commonly used property management system for hotels and hostels. And so they do have awesome reports that come out yearly. And as the economy goes down, whether it's through something like, whatever it is, as inflation went up, hostels started outperforming hotels. And it makes sense, right? If you have a value, what do people really care about today? They really care about their experiences. They want to go and they want to experience something. And they don't want that. They don't want to miss that from their life. So if they can go to a boutique hostel like we offer and do it for an unbelievable value, but they're going to get all of their adventures are paid for, and they're going to get this we're going to go and capture market share of the person that was right above that may have said, well, let's go the four of us and rent this. The person that was splurging on an Airbnb or what have you. They're just going to say, well, we still want to go, but let's go and do it at the best value that's out there. So that's one of the things that is a benefit to us as inflation or as these economic indicators, these ebbs and flows occur, we actually see a pickup as negative indicators start to show.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't surprise me. It's the value option, right? Or it can be framed as that, right? It's a value option, but like obviously you've positioned the brand to be, best in class option for the value.
For that value, right? Like I watched a post that said, hey, you got to determine, there's only one of two things you want to determine when you get started. And that's, are you going to be that economy or budget value, or are you going to be luxury? Because the middle, that's the toughest space to compete in. And so I think that does help us specifically when it comes to, being a little bit more recession resistant.
What sites, what information do you use to determine if there's enough travel in an area for you to want to invest in that market? Are there specific reports that you look at? What kind of data sources are you using for that? Yeah,
so we can first of all run our own data just through doing research. One is a DMO, destination marketing organization of that area. So those are government backed and funded, and they run all of the reports for for cities that have tourism or areas or regions that have tourism. So they have unbelievable free data where you can go in and be like, wow, okay, here's just the data of this place, that region or location's DMO. Obviously, there's information that we can go and ascertain once we get further into if we have an accepted LOI and we're going to move into an actual purchase, then we'll go through and we'll go and get expert market research done, whether it's through STAR reports, whether it's through feasibility reports with different feasibility experts. So we're going to verify everything as we get further into the process. But there's also just some markets that we kind of have identified and know and understand right off the bat that are exceptional fits for us.
That makes sense. And I'm sure that too, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like a lot of people know where the good places are, right? There's a lot of travel in these places, right? We know that there are certain locations and there's certain perhaps demand drivers, right?
Yes.
Maybe you're looking for places near national parks, right? I'm assuming that could be a demand driver, right? So what are the demand drivers that you're seeing a lot of hostel people or people that are interested in hostels kind of gravitating towards?
Yeah, well, if we look at the overall global hostel industry, transportation is huge, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Where can somebody have transportation where they can get there, they can travel to, and then while they're there, there's excellent public transportation. That is a key, that's a key driver in the hostel industry that may not be as important to a boutique hotel, right? Everybody in the boutique hotel is going to show up with a rental car.
Yeah.
One out of 8 people that stay in a hostel are going to show up with a rental car. That's a crazy difference, right? So all of a sudden it's whoa, when you say location, location, location in real estate, well, you're thinking you need to be, okay, this one has the view of the water and XYZ, where in the hostel, we may be well, yeah, but this is right next to a huge public transportation hub and it's going to drive on its own hostel travelers because they're there to experience the region. And if they can get around by that property that's located right there. So that's a differentiator, right? It differentiates what we look at as a high level driver versus when we're looking at a hotel opportunity.
Yeah, it makes sense, man. This is all really great, and there's so many. I've got a lot of questions right now that are kind of percolating in my head. I'm trying to think about which direction to take this. But let's talk about the acquisitions process a little bit more. I know that you've talked about seller financing in the past. You've discussed kind of ways in which you've been able to kind of pick up some of these properties in a creative manner, right? So let's talk about some of the creative financing that you've been able to conjure up while building up this portfolio.
Yeah. So if we rewind all the way back to November of 2018, when we purchased our first commercial property with the intent to convert it into a hostel, we bought that out of bankruptcy with hard money lending because we wanted a quick purchase, took advantage of an opportunity, but we learned a lot through that process about the way that the county viewed us, even though it was zoned for it. So we learned all of these things. It was in a special management area, which made it even more difficult, in an SMA zoned area. And then right as our hard money lending was coming to an end, then we had this crazy thing called COVID. And very few lenders thought that the idea of shared accommodations was going to be a viable business opportunity moving forward.
I wonder why.
So all of our lending options, and we were going from hard money to that. So we pivoted with that property, and we decided to just keep it commercial, mixed use, and so we recognized lending is going to be really important as we move forward. But COVID, here in Hawaii, we're an island. So it literally shut us down, and we were the last ones to reopen. And what that did is it provided us with an opportunity, right? So what we recognized is that if we could create a win-win for an existing hostel owner that was sitting there, hadn't had any revenue for 4 or 5 months now, it was a ghost town, was thinking about their business model, the regulations that might come forth because of COVID. Is this ever going to work again? All of those fear-based questions that they're having. And we were able to capitalize on making a purchase. But when I go back and I look at that, it was like, all right, well, number one, we told them straight up, banks aren't going to lend to us during this time. So it's either going to be seller financing or not. So not only were we able to seller finance at a very low interest rate, interest only, but we also provided ourselves 9 months of payment free, because we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if we were going to be able to bring in any revenue. It was COVID. We were locked down.
Yeah.
Well, right as we closed, they opened up they opened up in Hawaii again, and we started just absolutely crushing it. But that first 9 months that we operated, we didn't have payments. So we had no payments, 5 years, interest free. And that enabled us to really go and invest in the infrastructure of the business.
Nice.
So
nice.
that was the structure of the first one. So we basically put a little less than $400,000 down, and within the first 18 months, it reappraised for over $5 million. And, now it has a valuation north of $8 million.
Amazing. That's awesome,
and then
man.
we did the same thing with our second purchase on a different island, the island of Hawaii, or the Big Island. And what we recognize is the person that isn't really thinking about selling, because we've gone direct to seller, literally knocking on doors.
Yeah.
They don't have a plan for what they're going to do with their money. It's like, okay, well, if you were out of this business and we could help you, what would you want to do with your money?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I'm not really sure. Okay. So what are the benefits here if you were to help us fund this and seller finance? You're much more favorable from a tax standpoint, because now you're not taking the huge capital gains all at once. So we go through and we're like, okay. And then now you actually have the income coming in. And so we've been able to through creating a win-win in seller financing and understanding, first of all, what is it that the seller wants? What's happening in their life? Like caring about them first, and then saying, all right, let's create a strategy based on what they want to accomplish, where we could potentially create a win-win.
That's awesome, man. Now, quick question for you, because I don't know that I have this information handy. How many hostels or how many properties, I should say, are in the portfolio right now?
So right now we have 2. We have one on Maui. We have one on the Big Island, and we have one that is very close to being announced, and 2 more that we're in the process of securing through negotiating on. Yeah. So we have 150 beds right now, and within the next 6 months, it's quite possible that we increase that to 600.
Nice. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So question on because you alluded to this, but we didn't actually go down this rabbit hole. You talked about conversions, right? Or how easy it is to retrofit a building for plumbing for a shared bathroom situation versus individual bathrooms in each room. Of the ones that you've done so far, you said the first one was an apartment building. Is that correct? Or was it already a hostel?
No, the first one was operating as a hostel that then went to a multifamily, but we didn't purchase that one. That's just what got that gave us the
juices
idea.
Flowing.
Yeah, that got the juices flowing. And when we look at, so this is I understand what you're asking.
Yep.
Is conversion of buildings, is this viable for hostels? Do we go in and find a commercial property that's zoned for that use, even if it's not currently being used that way, like an office space? Office is an area of growth for us that we're going to go full send on. However, what we've learned through this process is that if we have our hierarchy of what we would look for first, is there a hospitality asset that is zoned correctly that's currently operating as hospitality? Yeah. Because if you have that, nobody can do or say anything. You're good. It's the highest opportunity to minimize risk. And because we bootstrapped everything along the way, so everything within our portfolio of our 4 commercial properties and all of other properties, it's 100% owned by us. But now as we go forward and start to bring investors in, because they're looking at the returns and they're like, okay, yes, we'd like to align with you. So as we go and do that, our first goal is to minimize risk and expedite payout. And so that conversion process, it just takes longer. So we're going to go all into that area. But for these next few properties that we're bringing investors in, we really want to be unbelievable stewards. And so we'll look at, let's minimize risk as much as we can. And let's make sure that we're able to, when you do those conversions, it can take a couple of years before you stabilize that asset. Yep.
100%.
But the payout then and the returns, can be astronomical. And so, but let's first of all, let's go through the process. Let's stay within the wheelhouse and create really, really strong investor relations. And then from there, we'll go into that space of conversion.
So existing hospitality, I would assume then that the two that you bought were already hostels.
They were already hostels. Yep.
Okay. Makes sense. And then if because the other thing that I'm thinking of too is like, well, if it's already a hotel, like, would it really make sense to convert it into a hostel? My guess would be no.
Well, let's walk through that. So here's where it does. Let's say you have an economy-based hotel, right? If there's a common space that we can see through design and decor, that we can really freaking make a community-centric area. And we go through and we look at the asset and we're like, okay, if it's an economy-based hotel and it's bringing in $100 a night for a room, but then that room can actually fit 6 beds at $50 a night, we just created from $100 ADR to a $300 ADR. The second thing that's cool about a hostel is you only have one choice with a hotel room. That hotel room, that single room either operates at 0% occupancy or 100% occupancy.
Right.
There's no in between. But the benefit of having a hostel is that room, it can sit in between there. Even when things go slow down or what have you, that room can still generate revenue, but it doesn't have to be 100% occupied. So does it make sense to take an economy-based hotel and convert it to a hostel? Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So let's talk about marketing and reservation system. Right?
Yeah.
So obviously one of the benefits of being or having a branded hotel, like say a Marriott or a Hilton, is you get like these awesome reservation systems and, Bonvoy and Hilton Honors and all these fancy, member perks and everything. Now for you, right? You talked about Instagram. So I'm assuming Instagram does drive reservations to your hotel. What other marketing and reservation systems have you used successfully to drive business to the hotel, to the hostel rather? And let's just start there.
Yeah. So I think first of all, anytime you're an independent, it's okay, how can you differentiate? And then how can you build? This is not an overnight game, but this is about how can we take our macro level of our organization and make sure that everything funnels into, we got to do a lot of things right. So from the very beginning, my business partner is an unbelievable integrator. And so started putting together all of the pieces of the puzzle, starting with an unbelievable website, right? Is it SEO aligned? And then from the website, then it's, okay, blogs. From blogs, then it's, the next piece of the puzzle. Then it's, okay, all right, how are we going to go and take our social media through Instagram and TikTok, and how do we go and wrap and roll all of these things together? And what we've seen occur is a 20% direct booking rate from when I think it was 18.9% or something when we purchased this hostel, and now we're up. We'll go as high in a month up to 37, 38%. So we've dramatically increased our direct bookings by our presence that we've created through, I would say, a holistic approach.
Notice I perked up there. You run EOS?
What's that?
We run EOS?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool, man. I don't know a lot of people in the commercial real estate space that know about EOS. So that's super cool, dude.
Well, can I share with you the impact of that for us?
Please do. Yeah.
Okay. So we've been awarded the #1 best small hostel in North America. We did that in less than 3 years. And we knew nothing about hostels. So we just went in and we had a vision. We built to our standards versus the hostel industries, and we created a lot of systems and processes, and we deliver an unbelievable experience. But to do that, it was like, okay, well, how the hell are we going to grow when we're putting all of our time into systems and processes and developing what you were just asking about, our marketing plan? Man, then you got acquisitions, you've got funding, you've got operations, you've got marketing, you've got the 4 pillars of hospitality. How do you go do this when we're so involved in creating operational excellence? And so we kind of came to that head where we're like, well, for us to grow, we got to move from working in the business to on the business in a more organized fashion. Hired our business coach, shout out Rick English, Up Advisors. But what we found happen is we went from spending 80% of our time in the business to now I spend 3 hours a week and my business partner spends 2 hours a week on the operations side. All of our time is spent in acquisitions, in funding, in marketing and growth outside for our investor arm. So EOS went from 30 to 40 hours a week in the business to 3.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's amazing,
powerful.
man. Yeah.
Powerful.
No, it is super powerful. And, for anyone that's looking to grow their business, I mean, I think EOS is a wonderful framework. I used it myself, and same thing, it's just kind of like kerosene, right? It's like lighting a fire with using one of my team members used to say cooking with gas, right? Like now we're cooking with gas. It's
Baby, we cooking with gas now.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, 100%, man. That's super cool. So this is just a nerdy hotel guy to hotel guy question, but what's the OpEx on this and like overhead percentages? What are we typically looking at here, to just cost to run the business from like A&G to, rooms expenses, like all that stuff.
Yeah. So we're full staff. So we have our model is not the staff light model at all. And when we really go look at our prototype of Maui that we built, it's 60-40. So it's the expense ratio is, 60% expenses, 40% NOI.
Yep.
And we have $2.5 million of gross revenue forecasted for this year.
That's awesome. That's actually right about where I expected it to be, because that would be very similar to like, say, an extended stay, like a Residence Inn. They usually run at about 40% margin. And then, obviously the more full service you go with F&B and everything, you're starting to really dig in. Now you mentioned margaritas and stuff like that, but like you guys don't actually do like a full F&B situation at either one. It's maybe like,
we're really good at describing where the food trucks are.
I gotcha. Okay. So you've got people coming in. Understood.
So
that makes sense.
We have food trucks in the area, and our team is really good at facilitating experience. So when people come in, we've got a guide. They can hit the QR code. They get the full guidebook of all the freaking bests of best,
so
everything
cool,
in the neighborhood. And
yeah, that's super cool. And honestly, my investment thesis coming into the hotel sector, when I was brand new, was that people pay for experiences. And I think that we're moving more into the experience-based economy, right? Where people will pay a premium to have a good experience. I really do believe that. And so what you just said is in direct alignment with that thesis.
So I think that what you just said is really, really key. And it gives small operators right now, we have a huge advantage over institutional brands like the Marriott, because we do have the ability to go in and move very swiftly. We can utilize AI as we continue. I see a huge use of AI to help us operationally, but those of us that can then go and say, well, hey, let's get as efficient as we can with AI, but then provide in the most important moments as much human touch and experience as possible. That's going to be the combo that's deadly. And, we had a guest, Ari Smith, on that's like an AI. He's the man in this space. And, he really, really did a great job of talking about how AI is going to impact us, and how the combination of those two things, utilizing it to be very efficient, but at the same time, being able to be very, very, very nimble in what we do to provide human touch. We have an advantage in being smaller versus the way that the big brands have to move.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe it 100%. And on that note, I don't know if you've seen, Nathan, like this migration of short-term rental guys, gurus specifically, right? Who are now all like suddenly boutique hotel investors. You notice this is just all kind of moving towards that.
Yeah.
And so I do see this wave coming, right? Of investors. But the truth is like, it might seem, oh my gosh, there's a lot of competition coming. Do you know how many boutique hotels there are in the United States? It's like tens of thousands. It's like an unbelievable amount.
It's a big number. And there's an abundance of opportunity. And I'm the hospitality asset class expert in a community that Brian Lubin does called Action Academy. So I really help a lot of people that are short-term rental owners that want to move into this space. And then obviously our podcast is that's what we're doing. I think a huge amount of our avatar are people that are moving into that space. But I think what people also find that are moving from short-term rental into boutique hotels as they really start to dig in is this isn't as easy as I thought it was going. It's not just that simple to move on over. It is a true business. It is a true scaling business product and service. So I think that some really good things are going to come from that wave that's moving over. But there is, the largest transfer of wealth that's ever occurred is happening right now. And a lot of the operators of these smaller, independent, mom and pop type, hospitality assets are ready to move on. So I think that there's an abundant amount of opportunity for all of those that are looking to make their way in the space.
I love that, man. Before we wrap up here, obviously your investor arm, right, of this hostel,
Malama Capital.
Malama Capital. Talk to me a little bit about the structure of Malama Capital, and if someone wants to invest in hostels alongside of you, how could they go about doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Malama Capital, we're right on the precipice of some pretty significant growth. We put a ton of infrastructure in, from hiring a fractional CFO to really understanding through this journey what we want to target, getting really specific, raising capital and aligning with investors for us is, to be a steward of that is like one of the most meaningful things to provide access, and then stewardship of people's capital is we're really excited for. But we've got a great team. My business partner and I are unbelievable. We're the co-founders of Malama Capital and House of Hostels. But partnership is really, really important to understand. We're in a long-term marriage type relationship. And so having complementary strengths where he is a championship level integrator, and to have someone like me that is a championship level team builder and personnel developer and visionary, those things together have really put us in a position where now we have created an unbelievable team that's incredibly strong, from a head of acquisitions to a head of marketing to executive assistant. We've got the business partner that helps us through this. So we are really a high functioning team. MalamaCapital.com is where people can find us, put it in the show notes. And we'll certainly take a call. And as we say here in Hawaii, we'll talk story with anyone.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. And I'd love to learn more about that as well. Gonna have to have you on for a second round, brother. This has been super, super exciting to hear about, this journey that you're on, and it sounds like you're up to a lot of great things. So I'm excited to continue, to watch you continue grow. As is with every Goldmine episode, Nathan, we're going to have you lead the audience with one final gold nugget. Take it away.
80% of success comes from mindset. 20% of success comes from execution. Very few people focus 80% of their energy on what's happening within their mind. And that makes them fail to take the necessary actions to execute. So the biggest thing that I can really ever share with anyone is to really do a deep dive into your mindset and make sure that your mindset is aligned to have the courage to do the thing. You just got to do in this space. Yeah. And you have to have the right mindset to prepare yourself to actually take that action. So invest in the mindset.
Love that, man. And I 100% agree. Nathan, it's been a pleasure, and looking forward to the next time, brother.
Yeah, Danny. Aloha.
All right.
The Gould Mine Podcast.